Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Chasing Labels. And we're here back again for another insider interview, this time with one I've been very excited to talk about. This time we got Mr. Paul. Uh, Help me with the last name, Martinovic.
Martinovic,
Okay.
but fine. It's Martinovic. Also, it's fine.
Anybody that watches the show knows that I cannot pronounce most things. But
It's
thank you
fine.
for
It's a
helping
tricky
me with
one.
that.
You're welcome.
But we got him here. We got Paul here today to talk to us about Transmission, which is a new kind of sub-label from Radiance Films. He is kind of the guy heading that up. I reached out to Fran, who we've had on here a few times, and he was like, "You got to talk to Paul. He's the guy. He's the guy that it's his project." So, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. This is really lovely to have a chance to talk about Transmission because, as you say, it's a new thing. Only a couple releases in, and yeah, it seems to be going well. Lots of exciting stuff on the horizon. So yeah, it seems like a good time to sort of talk about it and how it came together and what the future holds.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah. Please, let's just start a little bit with about your place in the business. Of course, most of the time, anybody that starts a new kind of label, sub-label, anything like that, they've been doing this for a while. So what's your history in the space?
Well, I haven't been doing this. I haven't been working in the Blu-ray home video industry for a while, but I have sort of an interesting sort of route into it. So I sort of started off my career thinking I was going to be uh, like the new Roger Ebert, being a film journalist, and I came to London sort of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in 2008. I think Lehman Brothers collapsed like the day I started my job at this magazine, and I just spent a number of years losing money, not making that work, but having a nice time sort of writing for places like Den of Geek and sort of writing TV and film recaps and things like that, and loved doing it. But then ran out of money, was about to go back home to my hometown of Bristol in the UK, my tail between my legs. And then, because I had no money, and then a friend of mine worked at Penguin Random House and said, "Can you come in for a week and do some data entry?" And I needed the money, so I went in, and I just clung on for dear life and ended up working in publishing for book publishing for 10 years. And I sort of worked around the industry. So I sort of started off doing digital, then I did marketing, then I did publicity, and I ended up as an editor. And my last job in publishing was at Picador Books, and my sort of big task was to relaunch their classics list. So these are like sort of backlist titles, forgotten classics, real classics, and sort of representing them. And for their 50th anniversary, I sort of worked on that. And that, as it turns out, is very, very similar to the work you do in the boutique Blu-ray industry. It's incredibly similar, and there's a lot of sort of analogs with the work that you do. Anyway, I left publishing, and in that time, I was a huge Blu-ray. I was like, people watching this probably just a giant Blu-ray head, and like collected as much as my limited funds allowed, and was so interested. And I think I sort of messaged Fran a few times over the years and was like, if you ever need anyone,
Yeah.
when he was at Arrow, and then and so I left publishing. I did and I knew I wanted to. Film has always been my obsession. Like, it's always been my thing, and I knew I wanted to work in film, and I did a few bits and pieces, and then Fran was looking for it, because at the start it was Fran and Filippo, our design manager, and a few freelancers, and that was it. That was Radiance. Like, he did like Fran did everything, as you know. And he decided that he needed some help, and that's how I came in, and have sort of, since joining Radiance, I've started off sort of producing titles, and now head of content at Radiance, and also launched this sub-label Transmission, which is a curated list that's sort of separate in conversation with Radiance, but it has its own, as you can hopefully see, its own sort of clear curatorial voice to it. So that's my reading. I've sort of been on the fringes of London film culture for a while. Did a lot of screenings. I used to sort of have a very close relationship with the Prince Charles Cinema and have done a lot with them over the years, and kept my sort of awe in. But yeah, it was only sort of when joining Radiance a couple of years ago that I went from publishing into this industry, and it was a great decision. I love working here.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting. I like that angle, and like you said, yeah, doing book publishing, it is very similar. Going through the catalog, having to, not necessarily in this case having to worry about acquiring anything because they already have, I'm guessing, a pretty large catalog of books. But
Yeah, although in some cases you do, backlist rights come up and you acquire stuff, and like for a whole author, for example, like
yeah,
you'd be like, all this person's works are available. But yeah, it's very similar.
that's cool.
There's even, I was thinking the other day, like decisions you make with like putting out discs. A lot of times it's like, well, what's going to be best? Is it going to be a brand new illustration or brand
Yeah,
new composition for the cover, or do you want the classic poster? Is that the thing that? And I remember working on American Psycho, a new edition of that, and just sort of thinking, people just want the classic, that painting, the Marshall Arrisman painting. They want that image. We can kind of rebrand it and refit it, but like
yeah.
that's the thing people respond to, rather than some fancy business card like knockoff image. And so yeah, it's the same, very 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 similar, and assembling things together, exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean that's being in. It seems like you're getting into this with Fran, just being a really big movie fan, and knowing that audience and stuff has been a key component to your success into this, because it's like you said, you got to make the right choices with some of this stuff. That's the presentation of it, and knowing to choose between, like you said, newly commissioned artwork, or all that kind of stuff, is an important thing to know, and you only know that if you love the thing itself. So yeah.
Yeah, I think like it's the balance you need. Like, so I think coming to this with all that publishing experience was very valuable. I mean,
Yeah.
the reason that Fran has been so successful is that he is a you know incredibly knowledgeable film fan. Has incredible taste, but he's also an extremely competent businessman, and not businessman's not quite the right word, but he's extremely, he knows how to do every part of the industry, and he can do it very well. So it's like that. You need both. You need the kind of practical.
Yeah.
You need the practical skills. You need the knowledge, and then you also need a bit of kind of creativity, and a lot of it, as we sort of discussed, is sort of trying to balance what will be commercially successful, but what will also be new and interesting and engage people. And that's the constant tension, I think.
I think that's the best way of describing Radiance, is that, and this is hard for me as a collector when you have to kind of decide on what you want to buy, because you can't buy everything. Radiance makes it really hard to not want to buy everything, because you guys do such a great job at picking titles that can just fascinate you by reading the log line, reading the just what it's about. I have a hard time looking at it every month. I'm like, oh man, yeah, it's important, and you guys find so many hidden gems. Like it's crazy, like things I've never heard of.
Yeah, I mean that's all credit to Fran, really, and his sort of his amazing experience with doing this. But this is the thing, Radiance is, I've been very lucky to sort of work at places where you don't really have to work hard to get people on side with what you're doing. Like the Radiance mission clearly early on was to kind of put out titles that other people perhaps wouldn't, because of the risks involved, because they're just so obscure, right?
Yeah.
But and I think Fran, because he had a lot of you know, he was a sort of known quantity in the industry, brought a lot of that goodwill with him. But you have to, you have to maintain that trust, right?
Exactly.
Like you have to, if you start putting out things that are clearly just like, well, you just got this because it make a
Because you
bit of
could.
money or whatever, because you could, then that trust starts to wane.
Yeah.
So that's the amazing thing, is that like Radiance has got to a point where every sort of, I guess, brand wants to be, where people will be like, well, I don't know what this is, but because it's you guys, I'll take a chance on it.
Exactly.
And hopefully most people feel rewarded. I mean, I think a lot of the times with Radiance, you know, the film might not necessarily be, you know, like Seven Samurai, but it will
Sure.
always have something that will be interesting and will
Yeah.
feel like you worth your time. And it's that's the thing that Radiance is sort of built on, and the challenge is of sort of maintaining that and keeping it going. And the good news is that just there's no shortage of titles, and it's just about sort of presenting them the right way. And that's kind of why Transmission has come out, because
Yeah.
you know we have more titles than we can do, you know, can work on. So having this is a way of sort of broadening the horizons a bit.
Well, tell us a little bit more about that broadening. So yeah, you know, obviously Radiance is kind of, you know, like we said, delving into a lot of like non-seen, unseen, underseen films, things like that. What's the kind of criteria that you looked at when you decided to start Transmission?
Well, yeah, I think Transmission has, generally the films are a little bit more of a known quantity, but
Mhm.
even so, I think certainly the through line with these first four titles that have been announced is that and this wasn't actually intentional, but all four titles, so Night of the Juggler, Stuntman, Special Effects, and Highway to Hell, all had extremely troubled releases where they struggled to find distribution, either because of production, the producer falling out with the studio, or you know, all these things. So it is this kind of like island of misfit toys in a way, where you
Yeah.
know these things um, are there, and there's sort of two, that having that is the effect is like twofold. Like the reason that they were sort of neglected is usually because there's something about them that's a bit offbeat, right? There's not
Yeah.
quite you
Like
know.
the films are like they have a story beyond the story itself, like in a way, like each movie's.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the other side effect of that is that because they've had this trouble distribution, it usually means we can pick them up because
Yeah.
they're not like, you know, it's not like Taxi Driver, or like, you know, where studios are going to be like, no, thank you, we're doing that. Like
Yeah.
these ones, we can kind of come in and say, we will kind of, you know, present them in a way that will help them find a new audience. I think it's a sort of the Transmission like ethos. I mean, the first four, they're all American films. That's going to change. Like there's not all
Yeah.
going to be American titles. Sorry, my dog is whining at me.
Oh, you're okay.
I think the thing that they're going to have, the thing that inspired me the most. I mean, growing up, my sort of film fandom began. I was uh, I was only child for a while, and all my friends kind of lived far away, because I went to a school sort of far away. So I spent a lot of time, as I think a lot of people who are interested in this do, like by myself watching films. And while I went to the cinema a lot, most of the time my sort of window into this world was through the video shop and through TV. And I think Transmission is about that sense of discovery from those times. So
Yeah.
both, you know, going to the video shop, picking up something, looking at the artwork, being like, what is this? Never heard of this. This looks crazy. But also late night TV, like things stumbling
Yeah.
across on things on TV where you're like, what is this? Like, who made this? What, you know, that sense of it literally being beamed in from another world.
Yeah.
Uh, that's the kind of thing, that the quality that I kind of love and kind of have been looking for in the Transmission titles. So it's kind of like ultimately Transmission is about, and Radiance, like Fran is Radiance is Fran's taste and Transmission is more my taste, and there's
Okay.
definitely overlap between the two. Like there are films that could work on both, but it's a sort of, then it becomes about, what makes sense in terms of the package and the look and
Yeah.
the presentation and things like that. So yeah, sorry, my answer was, I was distracted because
No,
I
no, no, you're good, man.
my bad.
It's I love it. Yeah, it's kind of like uh transmissions, kind of like the a little bit of the underbelly of some of what you're, like you said, like straight to video, late night kind of films that kind of you don't discover on their initial release, but you find them at home on the TV and you're like, "Oh shit, what is this?" Like,
Yeah,
I love
totally.
that idea, and I do think that out of what you've announced so far, that rings true for me just looking at it. I'm like, dude, these are
Mm,
I'd heard of Night of the Juggler, and I definitely heard of the Stuntman, which we'll get into deeper. It's one that I kind of had been hearing about for a while, and finally when you announced it, I was like, dude, that's going to be the first time I watch it because
mm,
that presentation is going to be great, and then special effects. Another film that's got to do with film itself interweaving in another story, and then Highway to Hell, which just looks kind of like a slocky, kind of like crazy adventure going into hell after a woman. Yeah, it's the kind of stuff I'm into, man.
mm.
Now,
Good.
uh, the first one, Night of the Juggler, we see it over your shoulder there.
Hmm.
Yeah, like I said, this was a discovery for me. I got it right here. This was my favorite release last year. I
Oh, thank you
we
so
do it.
much.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. We do a
Mm.
award show, Shelf Shock Rewind,
I
every
did
year,
see that. Yes, thank you.
and
Delighted.
I. I made sure I said something at the beginning of the show. I was like, guys, I know you already voted, but this was it, and we do our favorites of the year. This was definitely up there for me. And I really love the package, the way you presented it, and the film itself, dude. 1980, um, uh, I knew Josh Brolin's father was an actor too, but then I was like,
Mm.
I'd never seen him in anything, and then when I finally saw, I was like, dude, they look exactly the same. It's
Yeah,
crazy, and it's such a fun movie.
it's such amazing hair.
Dude, the hair. You know what movie it made me think about? Like growing up, I grew up in the '90s, so like Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Absolutely. Yeah,
It made me think of Die Hard. I was like, dude, Die Hard with a Vengeance looked at Night of the Juggler. It was like, let's get that vibe.
absolutely. I mean, there's a sort of lineage of like long, hot, tense day in New York films, right? And
Yes,
Night of the Juggler feels, that's one of my favorite genres, like Taking a Pelham 123, Die Hard with a
yes,
Vengeance, even Do the Right Thing. Like they and Night of the Juggler just was, you know, Night of the Juggler was a kind of holy grail for many years, and I had sort of flagged very early on, if ever we could do Night of the Juggler, let's do Night of the Juggler. That was pre-transmission, even being a, you know, glint in the milkman's eye. Like it
yeah,
was,
yeah,
that was the one, and it so happened that we were able to sort of make it happen along with Kino. Um, but yeah, I mean, the thing, it's interesting. Like those films, Die Hard with a Vengeance is a really good comp. The thing I noticed as we screened Night of the Juggler a few times in the UK, and it always was just an amazing experience. Like it's a great film to see with a crowd.
yeah.
But it does have in terms, it's not the most politically correct film in the world. Like
No,
there's a
no,
huge amount of sort of racial invective used in it, and I just sort of realized that's the case with all of those films I mentioned. Like it seems like that, there's something, it's reflecting something about New York in that period where there's like all these, it's the ultimate kind of like melting pot where
yeah,
everyone is angry at each other, but it's also this like celebration of it as well, which you definitely get in like the Juggler at the end. Like it's at the end, when, to spoil the end, but the last line of the daughter makes it clear that this is not it's not like Death Wish, where it's like
yeah,
you
yeah.
know
It comes together very much like a M.
Yeah.
Prince Lang's M kind of thing, where
Yes.
like,
Yes.
yeah, there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of things that go on in this place, like you said, where there's all different types of people from all different types of backgrounds. But when it comes down to it, like the good
Mm,
people will come together and help
yeah.
stop evil. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So it was. I'm so pleased you liked it, and I'm really pleased the response to it has been what it has because. Yeah, I mean, I sort of saw it initially on some crappy bootleg and was just like, this is, it's such a perfectly formed thing
Yeah.
for a certain type of film film fan.
Well, I think there's a lot of us, man. The audience that collects Blu-rays,
Mm,
especially us that like to blind buy things. It's right into wheelhouse because it's not just kind of like I wouldn't say slocky, but it's like it's straight up kind of like action thriller thing that you would see on TV. Um, but it's well made. It's well made. Slick for the time. I think and it's well put
absolutely.
together. So yeah,
I mean, that is a consistent thing across the transmission titles as well, is that they are, they have their eccentricities and there's
yeah,
some strange things in all of them, but there's some incredible filmmaking in all of them. Like,
yeah,
certainly The Stuntman, certainly Night of the Juggler, which is obviously had two directors,
yeah,
sort of,
yeah.
which you would, for a film where one director sort of nopes out a third of the way through, you'd never tell that. Like it's so well made.
That don't
Um,
typically happen in the good way. Like when you see, a film started from one person and then have to be handed off to somebody else. A lot of times that isn't successful at all.
no,
There's a tone shift. There's a way at which things are presented that just feels off, just not working.
yeah.
And it also, like you said, another reason for this movie to have a story behind the story. You know,
Well, there's a great story about that where it was Sidney J. Furie who
Mhm.
initially um, was working on the film. Who's obviously, it was this like one of these directors, a bit like Peter Hyams or like J. Lee
Yeah,
Thompson, who's sort of really celebrated now as this sort of like very competent, you know, a sort of journeyman who has some a
journeyman.
really
Yeah,
interesting filmography. And he worked on the visual style of the film, and which was I think it used a lot of long lenses indoors, which to sort of create claustrophobia, which is quite a sort of unique thing. And he spent weeks sort of planning visual style, going around New York, writing the script, and then he filmed in sequence. So the first sort of that opening chase that is remarkable.
it's
It's about
awesome.
20 minutes long.
Yeah,
He says he filmed all of that, and then in the course of that, James Brolin broke his foot for
Mhm.
real, or so he thought. And the producers said he was like, "Okay, we'll shut down production until his foot is healed." And the producers were like, "No, we don't have the money for that. He'll just have to spend the rest of the film on crutches."
Oh, the kinds of things
And
that happened on movies back then.
yeah, and Sidney J. Furie was like, "Well, this is a high octane chase thriller. Like, I can't. The protagonist can't be on crutches. Like, that's not going to work." And so he was like, "Well, fuck it, I'm out then," and left. And as he left, they got a second opinion from a doctor who said that actually his foot wasn't broken; it was just sprained, and he'd be back in a week. So, but of course, at that point, all the feelings had been hurt. And Robert Butler, who was this
Yeah.
amazing TV director, came on and took over. And he sort of took up the visual style and finished the film. But it's interesting. Fury says that what Butler made after Night of the Juggler was the pilot for Hill Street Blues,
Yeah.
and it uses the same visual style that Fury sort of established for Night of the Juggler. So Fury sort of says quite cattily in um, Daniel Kramer's book that he's like, I'm glad he got some use out of it, and because obviously Hill Street Blues is this hugely influential show in its own right. So it's interesting, yeah. This no one has heard of Night of the Juggler, and yeah, it's had this dramatic impact on like cop television.
I would say for
Um,
sure, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's good. It
I like
was
that
a really
story.
great surprise for me. Anytime I pick up a title on the blind and it ends up being as good as Night of the Juggler was, I was like, dude, I cherish it. But
Oh,
let's get
great.
into the one that I really want to talk about today is
Hmm.
your recent release of the 1980 film The Stuntman. directed by Richard Rush, starring Peter O'Toole as the cool. Okay, he's not cool. He's the craziest
He's not
director.
cool.
He's not
Yeah,
cool.
he is. He's
He's the
kind of cool, but he's
craziest
not cool.
director,
Mm.
and it's one of the coolest performances of about a director in a movie that I've ever seen. He is a nightmare. He is like Freddy Krueger, as a director, creating nightmares for our main characters. Please tell us about your discovery of the stuntman.
The stuntman was one that I never sort of not that I never considered, but it was certainly would have been on a list. I saw it many years ago, and its reputation was as of this sort of great cult film, and it was just a case of, as is often the case with acquiring titles, just finding a company that we were dealing with, just we can license the stuntman to you, and it was immediately just like, well, that you can see immediately the value of that and what we could do and what we could bring to it, and it just sort of came from there. I mean, it's a film that that hopefully the disc sort of bears out that a sort of a restoration, a 4K restoration, really brings out the incredible photography by Maritosi, and not all these films necessarily sort of justify that kind of work and input, but the stuntman absolutely did. It still feels like it's a film that has been fighting to be recognized its entire lifespan. Like, even though it's relatively well known, it still feels underappreciated because, and it's for a variety of reasons, it has fallen out. It's fallen out of circulation, fallen out of print. It is a strange film. Like, it's a very oddly has a very unique tone and pacing to it. If people come to it expecting an action film like The Fall Guy, or I don't know.
I was thinking about that. I was like, The Fall Guy came out a couple years ago, and I was like, it's weird that this movie didn't kind of jump to the surface and people didn't like kind of talk about it, just kind of searching around for movies like the Fall Guy. And like you said, not really available, even in the digital space, not as easy to find until more recently.
No, it's just sort of fallen out of print. I mean, Severin did a really amazing Blu-ray a few years ago, and actually a huge amount. Fortunately, Rush was alive for that release, so he made loads of amazing extras. So was Peter O'Toole.
Yeah.
So a lot of those we've just sort of ported over onto our disc. But yeah, it was a real, as soon as I sort of saw that it was available, it was like, well, this is absolutely one that fits the transmission brief. We could do something amazing with it. And yeah, it's been a treat to sort of, as you often do working on these films, watch it many times and sort of get into its layers and everything it has going on, which are many. And it has I think the one-liners in the stuntman, they're some of the best around, particularly Peter O'Toole.
Dude, Peter O'Toole in this movie, man, he commands the room in every scene he's in.
Yeah, he's a pretty good actor.
He's pretty good.
I
love the thing. When I was watching the features, I loved when he was talking about where he kind of like I was listening to the commentary, and they said that some of what his inspiration to play was a lot of his work with David Lean. Was some of where he got some of his inspiration of how, maybe an exaggerated version of David Lean, but some of what he drove as how he would play the character. I thought that was really fascinating. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Peter O'Toole is so interesting. Like, he loved Richard Rush so much. Like, he put him on the same tier as Lean. Like, he was like, this guy is a genius.
God, and he only did such a small amount of films too. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, he loved Peter O'Toole loved Freebie and the Bean, which I find pretty funny. I mean, Freebie and the Bean is a funny film. It's such a it's again so unique. Like like tonally, it's so like, you can see why I mean, he was really like Rush was really like reviewed really well. Critics loved him, and other filmmakers loved him. So like say Stanley Kubrick said Freebie and the Bean was the best film of that year. It's one of Tarantino's favorites. Francois Truffaut was said the best, you know, Stuntman was the best American film of that year. But in terms of getting it to sort of push through to audiences, he obviously had to go through studio heads and marketing people who just did not get it. And that's why, you know, we're here now, and you know, I'm, you know, Radiance Transmission are working on the Stuntman, and it's not this sort of like established, despite the fact that, you know, it's nominated for 3 Oscars, like it's not this established classic. Like it's this,
You'd,
you know.
you'd think by now it had already been re-released multiple times because it's so it was so kind of at the time celebrated, but like you said, it just kind of got lost in obscurity and in the fact that it was kind of like you said a botched release.
Yeah, they just did. They barely released it, you know,
Yeah.
and the only release it got, I mean, the reason it got that critical acclaim is Rush. You know, he's such a like. If you see this, if you watch the making of Doc, the Sinister Saga on the
It's
disc,
amazing.
which is absolutely an amazing watch.
Yeah.
Like he is an extremely engaging character. Like he is like this P.T. Barnum-esque figure where he, you know, he's very charismatic and not above sort of some slightly underhand tactics in getting his film out there.
Yeah, I was thinking like he's like William Castle or you know
Yeah,
Alfred Hitchcock type of like
mm-hmm.
I will come and promote my movie forefront. You know,
Yeah.
he's that into it. Yeah.
Well, I think he would tell critics in each town, he'd be like, watch the film. If you like it, review it. If you don't, could you not? Like he didn't tell them to give it they didn't tell them to give it a good review, but he was like, if you don't like it, just don't review it for a while. And they were like, okay.
Give it a second.
But it was, you know, it was reviewed incredibly well. Like Pauline Kael was a huge advocate for the film. Name escapes me, but a Seattle-based film critic was a hugely behind the film and helped screen it for other critics and built the kind of momentum. Seattle has this interesting role in the film, where the only person that Rush could get to sort of preview it was this Seattle chain, this theater owner who sort of saw the film and liked it, and they previewed it there, and it broke records. It like ran for a long time and was hugely popular. And so Rush went back to the studio, was like, look, this film is breaking records in Seattle, you know, what about a wide release? And the studio were like, Seattle's not a real place. Seattle doesn't matter to us like New York and LA. Like Seattle, you can't tell anything from people in Seattle. So he was like, okay.
That's weird.
It's
You'd
very
think
weird.
with Peter O'Toole at the center of this, just having him at the center, you know, center of this story, and you know, people typically, I think and I know for myself, love stories about the movie industry. Like when you see like kind of a little bit behind the curtain, a little bit, you know, them are attractive things to people. People like seeing that stuff. Now nowadays it's a little different because I think things have become so demystified compared to back then when your kind of coverage of movie stuff was like through magazines and newspapers, and it wasn't as covered as it is now. And of course, how they make movies now was way different than how they made movies then. So it's kind of interesting, you know, that they didn't think that a movie about kind of, and obviously we know that the movie's not just some like fun trip down movie making lane. It's a psychological kind of, you know, weird comedy thriller, you know, like it's a whole mesh of things. It's weird.
Yeah, it's constantly wrong footing you. That's
exactly,
which is what's its sort of appeal, but also probably what makes people who, you know, make those decisions a bit nervous. Just like what
I think that's the most fascinating thing about the movie, though. You're like, I don't know what I'm in. Am I in the movie I'm watching, or am I in the movie within the movie I'm watching? Like, I don't know. But it's okay because it's a ride, man. I love it.
Totally. And like what that Stuntman and Freebie and the Bean have in common is that you just feel at any point that the whole thing is going to completely career off the tracks.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It does. It keeps, Rush is able to just keep it, keep it
Just
moving, and he'll pull out some, amazing sleight of hand trick that will keep you. It's interesting what you say about like filmmaking. I think, were you saying that like we know more about filmmaking now than we used to?
well, yeah. I
Because
just feel like there's more knowledge about how movies are made. It's more kind of like out there, and I think how we make movies, with of course the stuntman is still an important asset to all movie making, I think. But then we do use a lot of like CGI, things like that, to kind of take some of that away that we used to use. We used to use more practical stuff a lot more prominently back in that time. So I think that the there's just a different attitude. I mean, this is a larger conversation, different attitude towards film in general than there was then as well. So
yeah,
it's, yeah.
yeah, I feel like growing up, I would be reading about film set reports and things all the time. Maybe they're still being done, and I'm not finding them, but I don't sort of find that anymore. I guess the thing with the stuntman that is relevant is this idea of like, you can't believe what you're looking at, which is,
Yeah,
in an era of AI and like fake news or whatever, like, like that's quite a, that we are definitely in an era now where we're just looking at stuff, and there's not almost anything you look at, you can't say with 100% certainty this is a real thing you're looking at.
exactly.
So
Yep.
that's quite a sort of that's an aspect of it that's aged relatively well.
And also that, not only that, also that it's like you can't it could be real, it could not be real, and it wouldn't surprise you either way. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
so it's
you're just like, you're numb to it, like whatever. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of one of the things that we've lost in movies, is that because we've shown that almost anything is possible to be shot on film, it's like made people like not so like get that adrenaline rush when they see a certain image on the screen. They're not, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like I said, that's a bigger conversation. But the
Yeah.
stuntman, I think
Well,
really, what's that? I'm sorry.
well, it's in Rush's intro. He says he's got quite a grandiose intro where he's saying, this is all about this is big philosophical questions asked by the stuntman, but it does stand up to that kind of rigorous, analysis perspective. It's a much deeper film than Hooper, say, which is a similar film from the
Yeah.
same time, which I really love. Like, Hooper's brilliant, but it's a good fun hang with Burt Reynolds, and this is yeah, a bit of a head fuck.
It is, and I think that's why, if anybody out there has not checked out the Stuntman, please grab this release and get. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. It's a great release, not only for the content in there, the film itself, and the features. Like we talked about the making of that Richard Rush was heavily involved in producing. He goes out of his way to film a bunch of stuff himself. He's in like his house. He's walking around talking to you.
Yeah. Flying a plane at one point.
Flying a plane.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But you get some of the, this is the inner artwork here. Really nice stuff. And you get 2 discs. You get the Blu-ray and the 4K. You also get a poster, a big size poster here with a booklet. Really great release, man. I really enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
You guys did it justice for sure.
Good. Yeah, I think what the thing with the stuntman that is clear is Richard Rush sadly passed away a few years ago, but we included on the disc, one of the new things we included is an interview with Chuck Bale, who plays the kind of stunt coordinator in the film, and was a real life
I like that character. Yeah,
and was a director himself. He also passed away, but Craig Railsback, who is Steve Railsback's nephew, has been making a documentary on Richard Rush for a number of years and has filmed everyone, including people who've since sadly passed on. So he was very, we were lucky enough, Craig gave us the footage of that interview for us to use. But Steve Railsback and Rush family, very, very close, and Craig, and obviously, and he would work with the same people, and I think everyone just, Rush himself spent years going to screenings of the Stuntman in LA to do a Q&As. Like, this film really meant a lot to the people who worked on it, and him most of all, keeping it alive and keeping it in people's memory. I think everyone's incredibly proud of it, including Peter O'Toole. So yeah, hopefully this does them a bit of justice and in getting it in front of more people and celebrated a bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And with that said, like the last other the other couple releases you got that haven't released yet. You got one coming out the end of March, one coming out the end of April. Just a little brief little talk about these other couple titles you got coming soon. Special Effects 1984. Tell us I haven't seen this one yet either. I've heard of it for sure because it's a Larry Cohen film. But yeah, tell us about that.
So Larry Cohen is obviously a hugely important figure for people who are interested in this kind of filmmaking. Like me personally, I love Larry Cohen, and this is one of his again one that's it's worth saying that Transmission is a kind of is more of a UK facing label. It's not unlike Radiance, which sort of does both. Obviously, people import, and that's great, but yeah, special effects hasn't been available in the UK basically ever. There's a VHS that came out, but it was cut heavily. So it's very underseen, and I think Cohen himself and Steve Mitchell, who made the documentary King Cohen and is on 2 commentary tracks on the disc, one with Larry made a few years ago and one new one. They both see this as one of his best and most underappreciated films. It's certainly got some of the best filmmaking in it. In terms of the sort of plot, it's very much, Cohen was an absolute Hitchcock obsessive, and this is, Vertigo meets Peeping Tom. Like it's a take on films like that, and it's got Zoe Lund from Miss 45 fame in her second role. I don't think she was anything before. Yeah, Miss 45 was a debut, and this was her follow up. So awesome. people who love that film will love this. I mean, it's and Eric Bogosian, of course, who is hugely popular figure now from his work on the Interview with the Vampire TV show, but also Uncut Gems, and he contributes a very funny interview on the disc, talking about his experiences working on a Larry Cohen set, which sounds pretty wild and what's the word? Not many guardrails in place, shall we say? Well, but that's a film that really, again, I had to watch it a lot, and it just has grown on me more and more. And I think that is something with these films that hopefully Transmission films have, is that they do stand up to repeat watches.
Yes.
And yeah, special effects is a real. This one is Blu-ray only; it's not 4K. But I really hope people check this out, because it is a brilliant film. If you like Miss 45, if you like any Abel Ferrara or that William Lustig, like you'll get a lot out of special effects. It's a real
I got that Arrow release that came out last year of Miss 45. So I'm primed for it, man. I'm ready to go.
Good. Yeah, no, it's a good one.
Awesome. Well, tell us about Highway to Hell from 1991. This one was, I was like, ooh, he just took a left turn here. This is a little bit off the beaten path of what he's done of the first three titles that have been announced.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a bit of. It's all about light and shade, right? You can't just have, like, I don't know. I'm trying to make a cooking analogy, and I realize I haven't got the knowledge to do it. But like, you have to mix things up a bit. And Highway to Hell is a sort of celebration of that. It's a celebration of like 90s excess and the VHS era. I mean, the real thing about Highway to Hell, I'm not going to sort of make a case for the cast being like particularly good, but the artistry and the special effects, the practical effects. It's interesting actually working on it. How many people have said, "I remember the issue of Fangoria that had this on the cover, like the Hell Cop." There's the people who worked on the sort of effects for this, like Randall Willem Cook and Stephen Johnson, all went on to have these incredible careers working on like Lord of the Rings and things like that. So it's good fun. There's also bizarrely like the whole Stiller family are in it when they're very, very well, when Ben Stiller is very young. Ben Stiller's in it. Jerry Stiller, Gilbert Gottfried plays Hitler. It's it's less of a kind of it's more of a sort of fun palate cleanser, Highway to Hell. But that's not to sort of say that it's not doesn't have the same. This will be some people's favorite transmission release, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I do, again, I've really enjoyed revisiting it and rewatching it. It's just great fun, and it absolutely it adheres to that thing, like, of it feeling like it was beamed in from another planet, being like, what is this? Like, who made this? Who are these actors? And what's going on? And that's the kind of feeling. That's why it sort of is of a piece with these other ones.
Well, that was a great pitch. Gilbert Gottfried as Hitler was enough for me. I was like, that'll work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. It's a pretty powerful image. And yeah, there's all sorts going on in it. And again, that was a film that just did not get a release in the UK. It didn't get a theatrical release at all, and was just sort of shrugged out on VHS. The director, Atta de Jong, also made Drop Dead Fred, which is a big cult film here in the UK because it's got Rick Mayall in it. He's sort of, national treasure, and he's an interesting guy, interesting director. He's worked on the disc with us. So yeah, and it was written by Brian Hegeland, who would like 4 years later would win an Oscar for adapting LA Confidential.
My favorite movie. I have a poster around the corner here.
It's a pretty spectacular movie.
Yes.
Not one that will probably come to Radiance or certainly Transmission.
Come on, man. Don't just somebody needs to put out a great edition of LA Confidential, people, please. It's just like stuck.
I agree. I agree. Well, if anyone's out there and wants to make that happen, then give us a call, because we can make it happen.
Yeah, please. It's one of the great films of the 90s, beyond the 90s, and it's still got just like a bland studio release.
I know. It's such an important film, LA Confidential. Like, you look at the careers that were launched by that, like Guy Pearce and Russell Crowe were nobodies before that.
Exactly.
Well, they were as Romper Stomper and
but to the world, it really kind of launched them. Guy Pearce would go on to do like Memento, and then keep going from there. And then, of course, Russell Crowe blew up and was doing Gladiator and Oscar films. And then even people like Kim Basinger wins an Oscar. James Cromwell, who of course has been an actor, but I think kind of got more popular.
It's him. It's that role and Farm Hoggett and Babe that really got.
Yeah, exactly.
That was big. That was what they call on the rewatchables Apex Mountain for James Cromwell.
Exactly.
He never had more power than he did in 1997. I remember, this is a sidebar, but I like talking about LA Confidential. I remember reading film magazines. This is my peak reading film magazines. I remember reading Premiere the year LA Confidential was up for all the Oscars. I remember reading the US one for some reason. Must have got it in William. LA Confidential is great until the last 5 minutes, and then it completely ruins it. He was just like he was just really anti LA Confidential, and it's always stuck with me. I kind of get, because his point was that it does the same thing that Psycho does, which is the last 5 minutes is someone in a room explaining what's happened, and he said that's bad screenwriting. I kind of get it, but also I'm just like, I really like Psycho and I really like LA Confidential. Can you not spoil that for me?
Yeah. Can you play? Anyway, I have that. I see that a lot. My wife does this a lot. I hope she doesn't. If the ending doesn't quite. Well, we'll see. This will be the one. But if the ending doesn't quite land the way somebody wants it, they decide they don't like the whole movie, and I'm like, really? You didn't quite like the ending, but the whole rest of that movie sucked to you now? You don't want to revisit that at all? I don't get it.
That is an interesting one. Sometimes I'm like, it's, but then if it's a real stinker, it's a tough one. Man. I don't think those examples are LA Confidential was pretty complicated, the plot. Having Guy Pearce explain some of the vagaries of what happened is a good thing. And Psycho, you just get that amazing shot of him,
Yeah. I mean, sure, there could have been a more there could be more show tell than tell endings, but like it's, like you said, there's some complicated plot there that needs
Yeah.
to be kind of like, so because it's a movie for movies are for the masses. You want as many people to see them as possible. You don't always want to confuse everybody. So I think in this particular case, because it's such a plot driven movie, that you need just parse out a few things. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
But dude, we could
So
do a whole other podcast about LA
so we've
Confidential.
agreed that LA Confidential and Psycho are good films.
It-
Glad to put that
if nobody
debate to
had
bed.
decided that yet, yeah. But we'll have to do this again, man, on some future releases.
Yeah, I'd love to.
That'd be great. But that's gonna do it for this insider interview with I'm gonna say it. Let me try it again. Paul Martinovic.
Martinovic. You were like 75% of the way there.
70. I'm gonna work on it for next time.
Say that.
But
Yeah.
thank you,
That's
man,
better
for
than
your
me.
time,
You're very welcome.
and we'll see you around.
Take care. Bye.